Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? This is my third attempt to make this because I keep going off on tangents. Let's just talk about the book. Skullduggery Pleasant by Derek Landy. Derek Landy is an Irish author, and Skullduggery Pleasant is a series that kicked off in 2007 and is still going on. There are 24 total books in the series. About 8 or 9 of those are short stories, the rest of them are full length, and some of them are pretty substantial. I don't know the page count on book one. I know it's 7 hours on audio. Later books in this series will get to twice that, 15, 17, 18 hours long. I think one of them even hits 20. Like they get pretty big. And I've read the first four, and then it started to get a little bit too involved, but I wanted to get back into it now. And so I'm refamiliarizing myself with the series, and here is a summary of the first book, in case you are unaware of what this is. So the main character is a girl named Stephanie Edgley. She is understandably Irish, as is the author. This book is set in Ireland. Her uncle, Gordon, is a famous horror novelist who's got just stacks on stacks on stacks because he's a very successful writer. He up and dies, and Stephanie's family gets called in to have the will read to all the relatives. And so she shows up, and then her other aunt shows up that her uncle didn't like, his sister, and then this weird stranger shows up named Skullduggery Pleasant, and he's dressed weird. He's in a trench coat and a hat and glasses and a scarf. Nobody can see his face, and he's apparently one of the eccentric connections of Stephanie's late uncle. Well, to Stephanie's utter surprise, her uncle has left everything to her, like his fortune, his massive villa in France, and the royalties and rights to his book, like just huge. And she's kind of baffled as to why. She doesn't understand why he gave this to her, but her first night just staying at the villa and checking it out, she gets a phone call from a dark and mysterious voice saying, "Where's the key?" And she's like, "What the heck are you talking about?" And then somebody tries to break in the house, and then another person breaks in the house to rescue her from the first person, and it's the weird guy from the will reading, and his hat and scarf get knocked off, and he's a walking skeleton. To her utter shock, he's able to beat back the first invader, and he starts reading Stephanie in on what's going on. Sorcerers are real, magic is real. There are good guys and there are bad guys. There are bad guys that are looking for keys to like an ancient labyrinth type thing, inside the which is like their old ancient dark one elder gods. But they need to find the labyrinth, and they need to find the key to get inside the labyrinth. Come to find out that the labyrinth is underneath Gordon's villa that has been left to Stephanie. And the only thing left to her wicked aunt is this little tiny brooch, which, as it turns out, is the key. So she's been put in charge of all of that. She still doesn't know why, but Skullduggery is just the man to bring her up to speed on all of it. And her uncle must have seen something in her that made him think that she was the right one to be the steward over all of that. So Stephanie starts getting read in on the world of magic. She learns that it's the kind of magic where if people know your real name, then they can use it against you to enslave you and stuff. So she's got to come up with a sorcerer moniker, and she picks Valkyrie Kane as her name, and Skullduggery starts introducing her to a whole roster of colorful characters in the seedy magical underworld of Ireland. They have names like Darkess, Oblis, or I can't even remember all of them. I just remember thinking the first time I read it, I was like, these all sound like Jaeger names from Pacific Rim. But the main strength of this story is like Derek Landy has a really strong sense of like, or a strong skill for writing like a dry sense of humor. The humor, whether it's in the banter and the dialogue or just worked into the narrative, it's so seamlessly connected to a magical world that otherwise takes itself seriously. Like, this isn't a humor book pretending to be a fantasy book. It's a fantasy that has plenty of humor in it, whether it's the characters being humorous or the author being humorous with the reader. And I think that's what its main strength was. And even in the later books that get a little bit longer, so far as I've read them, just that same dryness is there, where like a joke will come out of nowhere as you're listening to a conversation, and just the way that it's delivered is perfect. So that's what makes me just really enjoy this series and keep coming back to it. I read like one per year for the first couple of years, and then it's been a few years since I read one, and I really need to get excuse me back into it. But I kind of wish that more people knew about it. We're just now getting into an era where people are like remembering the good YA and middle grade books of yesteryear. The best ones, or at least the most successful ones, got movies made out of them. This one never did, but I think it's cool that after all these years, the series is still going. That he's had enough success that he can keep going with it, and that tells me that there's at least a chance that it's good. And if I just dig in on some of these longer books, then I'll find something that I can enjoy. So that is a review slash summary of the first book. I thought it was funny. I thought it was clever. The magic was just familiar enough that you didn't have to struggle too hard to wrap your head around it, but there were some new uses of things that made it novel. And you guys should check it out. I just finished reading a book today that was freaking awesome, and it's going to make my best of year list. But I don't know if I'm allowed to review it just yet. It was given to Upstream Reviews by the publisher, and I checked Amazon, and there's not even a listing for it yet. So I don't know if they're ready to release it. They just wanted to send it to us ahead of time. I thought it was going to be like just above mid. Like I looked at the description and stuff. I was like, okay, like this will probably be fine. And then I read it and I was like, oh crap, like this is freaking awesome. But we'll talk more about that when we get there. Drive safe. See you out there.